For those of you who don't know me, my name is Reverend Abby Tennis. I have the privilege and honor of serving here as your lead minister alongside my colleague Rev. I use she and her pronouns, and I'm a 5'8", maybe 5'9" today, white woman with asymmetrical brown and silvering hair, a variety of kinds of glitter on my face at this point. My "This Queer Pastor Loves You" t-shirt, stole my mother gave me, and a kind of ridiculously sparkly shrug. It's good to be together. It is said that human ancestors began to use fire somewhere between 1 and 2 million years ago. And widespread control of fire by our predecessors came maybe 125,000 years ago. And through much of that time, in many places around the world, human communities had a practice not of starting a new fire every time they needed one, but of carrying fire from one night's fire to the next night's fire, from one family to the next, from one camp to the next, sometimes 20, 30, 40 miles away by foot. Most cultures created some kind of fire pot to transport fire, or to keep themselves warm while on the move, or to use in religious ceremonies and for cooking and for more. The kangar is one from the region of Kashmir, the adogan in West Africa, censers in the Buddhist and Catholic and Eastern Orthodox traditions, and more have served these kinds of purposes over time. And the phrase "passing the torch" comes from the Greek torch race or relay race, where runners would carry a lit torch and then pass it to the next person to reach the finish line first, with the torch still burning. And the winner's reward was not riches or fame necessarily, but the privilege of lighting the fire for sacrifices at the altar. The sacred purpose was much more important than the competitive purpose for those races. And the Piikani people, who are also known as the Blackfeet people, who live in what's now called Montana or Alberta for the most part in this continent, also had a tradition of carrying fire. Before their community and way of life were decimated by the European colonists, and they were forced into reservations, they were nomadic peoples, and they would follow the buffalo herds wherever the buffalo traveled. And though they did not have one static home where they always stayed, they maintained a continuous fire for generations. It, of course, would have been possible, and it maybe even would have been easy, to start a new fire every time they moved camp. But carrying the sacred fire from one camp to another, never letting it go out fully, was incredibly spiritually important to the Piikani people, and indeed to many native peoples on this continent. As Elder Marvin Weatherwax describes it, the designated fire carriers in the community would often be those who were best at long-distance running. These were the people who went faster than the others and who could run 30 or 40 or 50 miles pretty much nonstop, both to seek out nourishment, in other words, to find where the buffalo had gone once the herd had moved on, and to arrive at the new camp first and prepare the way for the people who came behind them. They carried the fire inside buffalo horns. These were horns that had slits cut in them for air circulation and then were coated with clay. They were filled with damp moss and an intricate arrangement of soft and hard woods and a coal from the previous night's campfire, all sealed with a stone cap. If the fire inside the horn was running low before they were able to light the shared fire at the new camp, they would transfer the coal to another horn prepared to carry the fire, and so on, across however many miles they were traveling to make sure that the fire never went out. When asked if the Piikani still carry the fire, Elder Weatherwax says his grandfather told him that the last fires went out sometime in the mid-1800s, just before the buffalo were gone. His people moved their camps to follow the buffalo, their primary source of nourishment and resources. And once the nourishment was gone, it was no longer necessary for them to move their camps. And so they could stay stationary, and in fact, they were forced to stay stationary in a reservation and rely instead primarily on what the U.S. government would give them, scarce as it was. And though Elder Weatherwax sees his responsibility in his life as sharing the traditional ways that his grandparents taught him with others today, if you listen to him speak, you can't help but feel that ache in your gut to know that so many of the traditional ways have been snuffed out, including the importance of carrying the fire. Now, today is the LGBTQ Pride Festival in Philadelphia. It kicks off LGBTQ Pride Month in many places around this country and the world. And as I've learned about the tradition of fire carrying in a variety of different cultures, I feel like there's not much of a better metaphor for the role that LGBTQ people have played over time in human cultures throughout history than the idea of them as fire carriers, or us as fire carriers. And I say this for a few reasons. First, because LGBTQ people are often described as flaming. Not all of us are as fabulously flaming as others of us, but many of us are. And with a few exceptions, fire carriers were mostly not carrying that massive torch high for others to see like they did in the Greek tradition. For the most of history, fire carriers kept the fire hidden. In a practical sense, carrying fire in a small, slowly burning ember inside a pot or inside a buffalo horn allows it to burn more consistently and for a longer time. There's a practical reason why the real fire carriers did this. But in much of human history, queer people have had to keep their queerness hidden, right? Whether it was their sexual orientation, so who they loved or who they were attracted to, or what their gender identity was, how they thought of themselves. Or both. But just because it has often been hidden from the public eye and even often hidden from history books, it doesn't mean that queerness has not always been there, a slow burn that keeps the people warm and carries tradition from one community to the next. Queer culture was built on and passed on and carried forth in hidden places and has been for centuries. In speakeasy kinds of bars and parties and balls, in bathhouses and parks, in same-gender spaces like sports teams or religious cloisters. Romantic connection could not be found out in the open for many LGBTQ people throughout time. It had to be cultivated in passionate and loving stolen glances that lingered just long enough to have extra meaning only for those who found their hearts ignited by a person of the same gender. The records of queer people have been few, but they have been clear and consistent throughout all time, from the beginning of recorded history. Emperor Ai of the Han Dynasty in China around the start of our, what we call the Common Era here, so around Jesus' time, he is partially immortalized by the story of the cut sleeve. Does that ring a bell for anybody? Okay, I've vaguely heard of it before, but it's the story where he was sharing a bed with his lover, Dong Jian, and upon waking, he found that Dong Jian had fallen asleep on the emperor's sleeve. Emperor Ai his lover had fallen asleep on his sleeve. And the story goes that he cut off his sleeve rather than disturb his sleeping lover when he himself had to arise. It's a story of a beauty of loving romance between two men that has existed for now over 2,000 years. 6 centuries before that, the poet Sappho from the island of Lesbos in Greece was considered one of the greatest lyric poets in her ancient time and context, and with her poetry that clearly described erotic feelings between women. And therefore, her home gave rise to the contemporary word lesbian to describe women who love other women. There are Ellen Mutari, are you here today? I think Ellen might actually be at the Pride booth. One of our worship associates here sent me an article recently where I learned that there are at least 34 documented stories of saints' lives from the early centuries of Christianity who would now likely be called transgender. These are active Christian saints, including the popular saints Saint Eugenia, Saint Euphrosyne, and Saint Marinos, all of whom were people who were assigned women at birth but cut their hair and put on men's clothes so that they could live as men and join monasteries. This was in very early Christianity. And these are people who are still celebrated now. Leonardo da Vinci is said to have lived as an openly gay man in the 15th century in France. Florence Nightingale is known as the founder of modern nursing and also as someone who loved at least 3 women romantically throughout her lifetime. British King James, known most popularly in our country for creating the King James version of the Bible, like that King James. He was also known to have multiple same-sex partners over the course of his life. A new take on the King James Bible, right? And this doesn't even mention legendary performers like Liberace, like Marlon Brando, like iconic writers like James Baldwin and Langston Hughes and Mary Oliver, and world-changing activists like Bayard Rustin, Marsha P. Johnson. We have always been here. We have always been here. Religious leaders, royalty, performers, scientists, artists, writers, healers, and more who are lesbian and bisexual and gay and trans and queer and intersex and asexual and all the other terms that we have been called over the centuries. Sometimes our fire has burned slowly in hidden places as we traveled long distances to seek the nourishment that would feed us. And occasionally we have had the chance to carry a brightly burning torch to light the way for all those who are with us. But we are people who are known for the marathon, not for the sprint, for keeping the spark alive between the bonfires, for traveling great distances and going out ahead of our people to make the way. And our fire has never gone out. And my friends, it never will go out. Can I get an amen? Like all beautifully, inherently worthy people on this planet, LGBTQ, this is part of why lots of us just use the word queer. It's a lot easier to say than the mouthful. But I know not queer doesn't speak for all of us. So LGBTQIA++ people carry the spark of the divine with us, and it cannot be snuffed out. We are all fire. But I want to take the metaphor one step further and use the language from the hymn that we sang earlier, language drawn from the 1 Corinthians 13 in the Christian scriptures, that I think the queer community is not just fire, but I think it is the bravest fire. We sang these words as we began our service today, though I may speak with bravest fire and have the gift to all inspire, and have not love, my words are vain as sounding brass and hopeless gain. And these words in our hymn and adapted from 1 Corinthians are speaking about how you can have all the charisma, all the skill in the world, but if you are not grounded and filled by love, then it means nothing. But the way that I've been thinking about it this week is thinking about the term bravery in all of the definitions that I have been able to find for it, which is that bravery is the moral or mental strength to face danger or fear or difficulty. That's the way that we mostly use it. But apparently bravery also means fine clothes, like wearing your Sunday bravery. This is my Sunday bravery. Bravery also can mean a showy display, like anyone who's going to go to Pride will find. The streets were strewn with flowers and full of pageantry banners and bravery, that kind of bravery. Bravery means courage, it means heart strength, and not just heart strength in a vacuum, not just heart strength in a comfortable moment, but heart strength to face danger and fear and difficulty. And when we look out into the world, when we watch the news of the current administration, when we look into our own lives and the lives of those we love, there is incredible danger and fear and difficulty, right? And everyone from Franklin Roosevelt, whose wife was maybe one of those queer history figures I've learned, to Mark Twain, to Nelson Mandela, these figures have all said something like, courage is not the absence of fear. Courage is the ability to act in spite of the fear. We're not talking about fearless people. We're talking about people who act in spite of their fear. And the world doesn't just need fire right now. The world needs brave fire, bravest fire. I don't think that there's any better metaphor for queers than the bravest fire, the most courageous kinds of sparks of divinity, the most fabulous of the fabulosity. Speaking with bravest fire, but having love is nothing, we sing. But queerness is ultimately about love, right? Deep down, more than anything else, coming out into one's queerness is realizing that who your heart loves matters, and it's worthy of organizing your entire life around. It's worthy of shaking all of the rest of your life down to its foundations in order to make that love possible if you have to. And realizing who you are is deserving of love, no matter what your family says, no matter what the religious community of your childhood says. Even if the world tells you that something about you is wrong, queerness is about finding a way to own who you are, share it abashedly with the world, to love yourself and organize your life around love. And this is why queer celebrations and queer culture and pride and drag and other queer art forms center love so much, because queerness is inherently about having love. Carriers of the bravest fire, most fabulous fabulosity, those who act in spite of fear for the transformation of the world. There's a quote attributed to Mevlana Jalaluddin Rumi that goes this way. It says, "Being a candle is not easy. In order to give light, one must first burn." And so I want to add one more metaphor today, and that is one of glitter and sparkle. Because we're going to be doing a glitter blessing here, because we're going to be doing glitter blessings at our booth to anyone who wants to stop by and receive a little swipe of glitter for Pride. Glitter is one of the symbols of being the bravest fire, sparks of the bravest fire. And glitter is an important symbol in queer community. It's covered on, we are often covered in it after Pride especially, but also all kinds of other LGBTQ celebrations. And glitter is beautiful not because it gives us light alone, but because it gives us light through and in spite of and because of its brokenness. Glitter gives us light because of and in spite of its brokenness. And we know that part of the human experience for all of us is to live through the shattering and mending and breaking and healing again and again and again of our lives. And sadly, brokenness is part of the queer experience far more than many other kinds of experiences because of the oppression of queer people and LGBTQIA++ people in this world. But glitter, here today and every day, can remind us that the places where brokenness lives in us are still beautiful, that there are broken places in us that can still give light, and that the way that they give light can be more sparkly and more bright, create more dazzle and delight than one single steady beam. So, my friends, on this Pride Sunday, in this community that is full both of LGBTQIA++ people as well as straight allies and co-collaborators in liberation, what spiritual lessons can we carry forth into this world from the history of LGBTQ people, these people who have carried the bravest fire for all of humankind? Well, what I know is that there need only be one spark to create a massive fire. And so as long as fires do not go out, hope is alive. And I feel that hope alive here today, even despite what is happening in the world, despite all of the devastating realities that Rev listed in our prayers this morning, all of the devastation that is on our hearts. There are so many sparks that are still alive within us. Because though LGBTQ people have historically carried fire, because we have been forced to be courageous and also have chosen bravery again and again, LGBTQ people are not the only ones. Each one of us can be brave no matter what our sexual orientation is, no matter what our gender identity is. All of us have the spark of divine within us, every single human life. All of us can claim to organize our lives around love. And each of us who carries brokenness, which is each one of us, also carries beauty. So, my friends, will you repeat after me? I am a spark of the bravest fire. You can type it into the chat if you want to. I am a spark of the bravest fire. No pride for any of us without liberation for all of us. I will carry my fire to one who needs it. May it be so. Amen. Happy Pride. Yes, may it be so. Let's all say it together. May it be so. Amen. Happy Pride. Thank you.
As a soloist, Brendan McGill, who's coming in to sing this. You haven't even heard him, but yeah. You'll be glad you applauded when you did. So, to sing this epic anthem from the musical adaptation of La Cage aux Folles. Anyway, Brendan, thank you so much for being here. Oh, that's a wrong note. Wow. That would have been intense.
I am what I am. I am my own special creation. So come take a look. Give me the hook or the ovation. It's my world that I want to have a little pride in. My world, and it's not a place I have to hide in. Life's not worth a damn till you can say, hey world, I am what I am. I am what I am. I don't want praise, I don't want pity. I bang my own drum, some think it's noise, I think it's pretty. And so what if I love each feather and each spangle? Why not try to see things from a different angle? Your life is a sham till you can shout out loud, I am what I am. I am what I am, and what I am needs no excuses. I deal my own deck, sometimes the ace, sometimes the deuces. There's one life and there's no return and no deposit. One life, so it's time to open up your closet. Life's not worth a damn till you can say, hey world, I am what I am.
Hi, I'm Reverend Abby Tennis, and I use she, her pronouns.
I'm Reverend Alexandre da Silva Soto, and my pronouns are they, them, and theirs.
And we are the ministers of the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia, where it is our mission to awaken love and justice in our lives and in the world. We're so glad you watched this video, and we hope that its message connects with your soul.
We also want to invite you to join us for Zoom services Sunday morning at 11 a.m. or come in person at 2125 Chestnut Street, Center City, Philadelphia.
Whether you join in person or online, in these services you'll hear messages like you just heard. You'll get a chance to sing together, pray together, and even greet one another in coffee hour afterwards, whether you're brand new or a longtime member.
You can always find a Zoom link to our services and more about what to expect on Sunday mornings on our website, philauu.org. The link is below.
If you are connecting with this message and feel moved to give to the mission of this congregation, we invite you to click on the link below again and follow the prompts to give, or send a text message to 709-5095. And again, follow the prompts.
If someone in your life needs to hear these words today, please share this video. And again, thank you so much for watching.
We hope to see you soon.
See you soon.